الكتاب اللي بنقدمه النهارده اسمه حجارة القاهره الحية بقلم ياروسلاف دوبرولسكي. وهو قعد في مصر من بيعمل في القاهرة من سنة 1980 المدير الفني لقسم الآثار المصرية التابع لمركز البحوث الأمريكية. الحقيقة الكتاب كتاب من نوع جديد، لأنه أولا بيقدم آثار مش الآثار المعروفة. الكتاب بيغطي 53 أثر من جوامع وأسبلة ومدارس ومقابر. فيها طبعا بعض الآثار المعروفة زي جامع ابن طولون وزي البوابات المختلفة للقاهرة، إنما غالبيتها من آثار غير معروفة بالنسبة لنا، حتى لنا إحنا كمصريين. والغريب إن بنجد شخص أمريكاني هو اللي بيعثر عليها، وزي ما قلت بيقدم الصورة بيرسمها هو، وبيعطي وصف كامل للأثر، بيدي خلفيته التاريخية، بيدي مين اللي بناه وتاريخ اللي بناه وتطوره إذا كانت أضيفت له. وهو اللي هيجيب على الأسئلة التي توجه إليه.
Mr. Dobrovolsky, you have worked in architecture conservation since 1980. What are the most important projects?
I don't know what are the most important projects. I think every conservation project is important. I first came to Egypt to work for the Polish Institute, Polish Archaeological Institute, and worked for quite a few years with them. Then with different other institutes in Cairo, and for the past 5 years I've been working with the American Research Center. So I would find it very difficult to say which project was the most important. I think conservators don't deal with things that are not important. If you ask me which one was the most important for me emotionally, I would probably say I think we do in Cairo.
عمل المؤلف الدكتور دوبروفسكي في مشروعات ترميم عديدة منها سبيل كتاب نفيسة البيضة، والمؤلف يقدم لنا تاريخ وحياة هذه السيدة التي أقامت هذا السبيل الذي وصف بأنه نافورة الجمال والبركة. وكانت نفيسة قد ورثت ثروة من زوجها علي بك، ومنها أرض أوقفتها على أعمال الخير، ومن ضمن تلك الأوقاف السبيل الذي شيدته بجوار باب زويلة. وقد تهدم المبنى في عام 1990 وأصبح على وشك الانهيار التام، وتم ترميمه من جانب المركز الأمريكي للبحوث بين عامي 1996 و 1998. ويصف المؤلف السبيل والكتاب بقوله إنه مزيج من نافورة عامة ومدرسة في نفس المبنى. وفي الدور الأرضي يستطيع المسافرون والعابرون العطش أن يرووا عطشهم من أواني من النحاس معلقة في سلاسل في حاجز شباك حديدي.
Was it easy to find information on the background of the monument you describe, specifically those belonging to ordinary people?
Well, please remember that this book is just a collection of sketches. I did not do any scholarly research on the book. I simply used whatever is available. And so I would say yes, it was fairly easy. There is quite a lot of material published. I just tried to collect from what is printed things that directly related to my sketches.
Are really wonderful. How long did it take you to draw each one of them?
Of course, they are not all the same, but I would say somewhere between an hour and 2 hours. Of course, it depends on the sketch, and they were, of course, all drawn from nature. I did it just for pleasure, so sometimes it takes a much longer time to find the proper place and the proper time of day than actually to make the drawing. But it would take between an hour and 2 hours normally.
ويقول الكاتب عن باب زويلة: إذا نظرت إلى بوابة المدينة باب زويلة وما يحيط بها، فإنك تشاهد تاريخ القاهرة أفضل من أي مكان آخر في المدينة. سترى القوة والعظمة والثروة، كما سترى الأماكن الفقيرة والخربة أيضا. ويضيف: لقد تغير الحظ، فظهرت إمبراطوريات ثم أفلت، وكلها تركت آثارها هاهنا. إن الكتل الحجرية للبوابة تبدو ضخمة أمام الجماهير المزدحمة عند أقدامها. لقد شهدت تلك المنطقة أحداثاً كثيرة، فكم من حاكم مر عليها في موكبه الرسمي، وكم من ثائر كبل بالأصفاد أمامها، وكم من المرات مرت بها كسوة الكعبة التي كانت ترسل إلى مكة في كل عام. وينهي الكاتب حديثه بالتساؤل: كم من تعيس نفذ فيه حكم الإعدام على باب زويلة، هذا الباب التاريخي.
Mr. Mr. Dobrovolsky, if we pick up one of the sketches and talk about it in details, what we can say and which one you will pick up?
Well, let's talk, for instance, about this drawing showing Beit al-Razaz in Darb al-Ahmar. The drawing was made in 1991, so it's 9 years ago now. And before I ever made it, I made a lot of walks, strolls down Darb al-Ahmar, and it first drew my attention because it's such a beautiful building. So I would observe it and then choose a proper time of the day and a proper angle at which to draw it. So before I ever started to sketch it, I already knew quite a lot about this building visually. Then I sit down and just make a drawing in, say, 2 hours. And then the drawing just sits there. And well, I simply drew it specifically for this book. There are some maps of Cairo available, of course, but I wanted something that would both relate to my sketches, that show location of the sketches, but also something that would show at a glance, the different parts of the city. I think it's just enough to look at the map and you immediately realize which are new districts, which are old districts, and you get the feeling of this enormous city that Cairo is. So I simply sat down and drew the map anew, using the available sources, of course.
وعن بيت أحمد كتخوذ الرزاز يحدثنا المؤلف فيقول: بناء مرتفع رباعي له واجهة ضخمة من الخشب والزجاج الملون، وبداخله ردهة كبيرة تغطي الدور الأسفل بأكمله، كما يحوي البيت عددا كبيرا من الصالات والغرف والأفنية والدهاليز. وترك كل من سكن البيت طابعه عن طريق إعادة بناء البيت أو إضافة أجزاء جديدة، ولا تزال بعض آثار العصور الوسطى ظاهرة في فناء البيت. ومن ضمن هذه الآثار بوابة عليها رمز السلطان قايتباي. وكان رب البيت يستقبل ضيوفه حول النافورة الرخامية القائمة في وسط الصالة، بينما تجلس السيدات في دور علوي مخصص لهن. ولا يزال يقسم البيت إلى سلاملك في الدور الأرضي وحرملك في الثاني.
Mr. Dobrovolsky, there is no real relation between this book and your own work. Then when this idea came into your mind about the book?
Well, this is a collection of sketches, essentially. And the relation between my work as a conservation architect and these drawings is simply that as an architect I was taught to make line drawings at the university, and I'm interested in old buildings, obviously, so I tried to record my impressions from Cairo on these sketches, and I did them. Well, the first one here in the book is 15 years old, so they're only in this way related, but they don't specifically show buildings that I worked on. It's just my pastime, I did them all simply for pleasure. And I didn't think about the book for a very long time. It was my friend Jason Thompson from the American University in Cairo who persuaded me to turn this into a book. And very soon I learned that making a drawing is a very different thing than making a book. And the American University in Cairo Press did a wonderful job on production of this book, and especially Andrea Akshar, who was the graphic designer, developed my ideas about the book in a wonderful way. It was a great pleasure working with her.
back with the time, what was the response of the ordinary people while you drew these sketches?
Oh, it was wonderful. This was one of the great pleasures in making them. Most of these buildings are in rather poor areas, very conservative areas, so one could easily expect people to be surprised. What is a foreigner doing here, making a drawing of this place? And I always had a very positive response, and people were simply curious and wanted to know what I was doing and encouraged me. Of course, I had a lot of questions, mostly from children, but they were all very friendly. It was one of the great pleasures in making these drawings, to be with the people and the interest that the people showed in my sketches.
ومن بيت جلال الدين الذهبي في الدرب الأحمر يحدثنا المؤلف عن المشربيات المصرية الجميلة، ويقول إن كلمة مشربية مستمدة من فعل يشرب، إذ كانت هناك قلل من الفخار تحتوي على ماء للشرب تقف على قواعد خاصة بها، وتساعد المشربية على تبريد المياه، وفي نفس الوقت تكون بمثابة تكييف للهواء في داخل المنزل. وكانت المشربيات أيضاً تزين واجهات المنازل، وكانت بالمئات في القاهرة، وعاد بعض المهندسين المعماريين لاستخدامها في بعض الأبنية الحديثة.
Mr. Dobrovolsky, if we imagine now, just imagine, that you are going to make another book about Cairo, what it will be about?
Well, if I were to make another book about Cairo, perhaps it would be another one just like this, but perhaps it would be no longer about historic buildings, about the history of the city, but about the living city of today, especially about people of the city. There is such a wealth of wonderful folk, popular art and tradition around it. I think it's very much worth documenting and recording, and perhaps this would need another medium, perhaps not pen and ink drawings, but this might be a very good subject.
What about the modern Cairo?
Well, it's a fascinating city in many respects. It's sometimes very hard to live into. It's a giant metropolis. It's far too noisy. It's far too crowded. But still, it's so fascinating that I've been living here permanently for the past 8 years, and I want to stay longer.